See, I was just born in a small town, old town, Pennsylvania, and being born in a small town, you have those small town morals, those values. You're known the day you're born pretty much just by your last name, you know, what family reputation is to begin with. And I went off into service in '74 in the Air Force. And I spent 6 years in the Air Force, traveled around. I was stationed in places like Georgia and Mississippi and Maine. And my last place of assignment was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was like 23, 24 at that time, and I really liked it out in Phoenix. And life was really good for me. And then one day when I was preparing to go to a dart banquet, an awards banquet, I noticed two suited gentlemen walking up my driveway. And then the dogs barking, I walked out to see what this was about, and their first words were, "You Ray Krone?" I said, "Yes." They say, "Do you know Kim and Kona?" I didn't know anybody named Kim and Kona. I said, "No." They looked at each other for a second. They said, "You don't know Kim and Kona from the CBS Lounge?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I know a Kim from, I don't know her last name, but I know a Kim that's a waitress, a bartender up there." And again, they looked funny at each other. Well, you're her boyfriend, aren't you? I said, "No, I'm not her boyfriend. What's this about?" They said, "Well, you've been dating her, haven't you?" I said, "No, I haven't been dating. What's going on?" And again, they're looking back and forth at each other. And look at me, they go, "Well, she was found murdered last night." And they proceeded to tell me how she was found in the men's bathroom of the bar. Sometime after closing, she closed up the bar herself. Was last seen about 1:15. Was found semi-clad in the men's bathroom, stabbed about 4 or 5 times. And they took me downtown and they questioned me for 3 hours. And questioning is a nice word. It was more of an interrogation, but again, I was naive. I just thought I was helping them. That's just the way police are. I just told them what little I knew. And I was taken home that evening and talking to my friends about what I'd just been through. I mean, just not every day you get questioned about a murder, and it's a front page murder. It was on the front page of the Phoenix Republic out there. And having thought it was all over and telling my friends about it, it was kind of like a laugh, you know, you won't believe what happened. Found out the next day it wasn't over though, because when I got home from work that day, there was a message to call this detective. And I called the detective and he was at my door right away. I mean, he must have been hiding in the backyard or something. I don't know how he got there that fast. I practically didn't even have time to hang the phone up. He goes, "Yeah, we need to clarify a few more things, you know, just to exclude you as a suspect." And, all right, whatever. So off we go downtown. And that's when he presents me with a warrant to take blood samples, hair samples, and teeth impressions. Now I cooperated. This was pretty intrusive. It was pretty daunting. And when we're done doing all this stuff, about 2.5 hours worth, he wants to sit me down and call me a liar and tell me it's about time I confess, it's about time I confront the truth, it's about time I start admitting to all the lies I've been telling. And as I told you, I came from a small town. My honor, my integrity is something I was very proud of. It's something I was recognized by my family, my friends, to be a man of honor, and my word was good. And here's a man that doesn't even know me, a man that I could tell I was not going to like, calling me a liar. And I had about enough of it. I finally told him what I thought of him. I told him what I thought of his police department. I told him what I thought of his whole investigation. Well, it got the desired effect that I wanted, because he said, "Well, look, I'm not going to argue with you. There's other ways to handle this." He said, "Well, I'll take you home," which is what I wanted. Well, unfortunately, though, I found out what he meant by "there's other ways to handle this" the next night. Because see, when I pulled in my driveway now this next night, getting out of my car and locking it up, all of a sudden I'm greeted with the screech of brakes and tires and doors slamming, and I look, and here's a whole police van loaded with officers, armed, telling me to freeze. Had me put my hands in my car, come over, grab me, threw me down on the ground, handcuffed me, hauled me off to jail. I was arrested for murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault in Kim and Kona's death. 2 days after it happened, I'm in jail. Now, I've never been in trouble in my life. I don't have any family members that were ever in jail. I don't have any friends that was ever in jail or in prison, never visited anybody, none of it. Nothing. In fact, I didn't even have detention in high school. And here I was in jail now. Smelly, stinky, noisy. And again, a whole lot of people I thought I wasn't going to like. But those first couple days didn't really concern me that much, because see, all I was thinking about was, did I get a chance to lock my car? Who's feeding the dog? Geez, how much money did I miss for work? I got to contact them, let them know where I'm at. The little small personal things that affected my own little day-to-day living in life. That's all I was thinking about then. Again, I was stupid, I was naive. I didn't realize. See, I thought at that time the cops, the police, were still looking for the person that did it. They were still doing their investigation. They were out there doing their job. Turns out that with my arrest, there also came there, they were convinced that I was the guilty party. They weren't looking for anybody else. They weren't investigating anybody else. They were looking for me. And any evidence that came out that would have been helpful to me, any evidence that came out that pointed in another direction, they ignored or worse yet, destroyed. So I sat there those first couple days, kind of quiet, kind of watching, keeping to myself, trying to avoid all the anger, the frustration, the violence, and things that go on in jail, trying to get down the food and somehow use the facilities that were about as dirty as they come. And I waited for that little announcement to come over and say, Ray Krone, go home, we found the right guy. It didn't come. 2 weeks went by. I got a call out for legal. I got what they call a court-appointed attorney. Now, he's the guy that gets his name on this list somehow. I'm not sure how bad a grade you have to get in law school to get your name on this list, but this man did it. And then, because they really liked me so much, they gave him $5,000 to represent me. $5,000 to represent me in a capital case. He's seen me about 2, maybe 3 times, talked to me a little bit. 5 months' time, I'm sitting in the courtroom, going to trial for murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, facing the death penalty. I don't know how this can happen. How can this be? I mean, it's surreal. This ain't really going on. But you're already numbed down from the jail experience. You already had talked to people and sat in courtrooms, already had their hearings, and you realize that this is real. This is a fact. This is the way it works. And that trial lasted 8 days. Yeah, 8 whole days, 7 of which was a prosecutor. The bite mark left on her breast. They said that bite mark identified me, or matched me. They had an expert that they paid over $50,000. We have records of it. Over $50,000 was paid to this man to testify. 10 times what I was given to defend myself. And he identified that mark as belonging to my teeth, that it happened at the time of death, and that made me the murderer. Now, they had fingerprints, they had footprints, they had hair. No eyewitnesses, but they had other evidence, none of it pointed to me. And they used this bite mark, an expert guy, and he put on a heck of a show. And the last day of the trial was the defense's turn, and that consisted of me taking a stand and telling what little I knew about Kim and how long I'd been going to the bar and where I was at night. I was actually at home in bed. Well, prosecutors know their job. They practice it every day. Their job is just strictly to get a conviction. Don't think it's about justice. Don't think it's about truth or fairness. It's to get a conviction. And the jury was out for 3.5 hours, came back and found me guilty. Yep. And 4 months later, I went before the judge. The laws have since changed, but back then at the time, Arizona was one of the states where the jury found you guilty in the guilt phase, the judge did the sentencing phase. And that's where they had the mitigating, aggravating hearings. The aggravating is where the prosecutor puts on reasons why this meets the higher criteria of a death penalty, why this is so above and beyond the norms that it should result in the ultimate penalty. And he used this bite mark, this wonderful bite mark. He used that and he said, well, it either happened right before death, just very prior to death, and it makes gratuitous violence. And he said pain and suffering, which was an aggravating factor. Or to cover his bases, he said, or it happened just after death, which means she was already dead, and that's heinous and depraved, that's necrophilia. And that, of course, was another aggravating factor. The judge was convinced that, yeah, there's aggravating factors here, that's for sure. And then it came the defense's turn to put on the mitigating. How do you mitigate something you didn't do? How do you apologize? How do you lessen your guilt, your culpability for something you weren't even around? Now, I guess we all do it in certain small little instances. We'll take the blame for a little small thing. This is murder. I wasn't taking the blame and I wasn't about to apologize. It just wasn't going to happen. And I told my attorney that. I said, there ain't no mitigating. I ain't mitigating nothing. He said, well, we'll put your family and friends on. We'll get them. Well, my family's back in Pennsylvania. He's going to put them on the stand. I said, no, we're not going to do that. I said, you're not going to have my family, my friends. As nice as it sounds to have somebody that knows me to actually get up there and tell the truth about me, I said, no, you're not going to do that, because you're not going to have that man over there, that prosecutor, come up there and tear them apart and belittle them and call them liars just like he did me and my friend Steve. I said, no, it's not going to happen. You're not going to do that to my family. So we put on a mitigating. And for all you lawyers in the audience, you know that I hope that anyway, that means if there's an aggravating circumstance and no mitigating circumstance, there's only one penalty available. I was sentenced to death. I was bound up like Houdini in one of escape attempts. I mean, chains everywhere, and off I went, straight to death row. That was probably the low point of my life. The deprivations, the horrors, again, the violence, the assaults, the loneliness. You see there you only got out of your cell 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That was rec day. You got taken outside to a pen out back. Imagine the hunters that have their beagles out back in their little dog run, fenced in areas that you'll have in your backyard. That's about what our size of our rec pen was. It was all individual. You never left your cell without first stripping down and submitting to, it wasn't physical searches, but it was visual, where you had to expose everything so there couldn't be anything hidden. Then you got dressed in front of them again. Then you stuck your hands out through your food trap that you got fed through and got handcuffed. And then you turned around where they belted it at your waist so your hands couldn't move any farther than this. And then they finally racked your door where you could step outside, where then they shackled you at your ankles so you had about a foot and a half to walk with, where you just shuffled. And then they patted you down one last time, and then you could actually proceed down the hallways. And they called out dead man walking. And in Arizona, you couldn't have 2 death row inmates passing at the same time. Only one walked down the hallway. If one was coming the other way, one of them got shuttled off into another room or out of sight. And that's the way you lived. Fed through the cell. The food was always cold because you couldn't have death row inmates working in the chow hall. You couldn't have them around utensils. So it was always made up in another yard and over in another cell block and brought over and left to sit till whenever the officers felt like feeding us. Our 3 rec days were the only 3 days that you got a shower. You got 15 minutes out of your cell by yourself to take your shower and get your cleaning supplies and clean your house. We were allowed 2 phone calls a month. 2 15-minute phone calls, and all you could do was put in for AM or PM. Some of us would put down a time, but we learned that if you wanted to have it at 6 o'clock at night, then put down for 1 o'clock in the afternoon. If you wanted to have it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, put down for 6 o'clock at night, because the guards would make sure that they were not very accommodating. Until you really got to know them and could find one you got along with, you might get a phone call within the 2 or 3 hour range that might be available to you to call home. I was out in Arizona. Pennsylvania, of course, was 3 hours difference, sometimes 2 hours difference, but it was difficult for me to ever complete a phone call. And then one of the first of many miracles happened. You see, I had a distant relative that I'd never met before. All my family grew up in the area. I went to the same high school that I had grandparents graduate from. But one relative was actually my mom's aunt. My grandma's sister had actually moved to California back in the 50s. She married a serviceman, and that was the only branch of the family tree that doesn't lie within 15 miles of each other in Dover. And she had a son, and in the early 1990s, she was talking with his son, something on television about justice or whatever, and she says, you know, you have a cousin on death row in Arizona. Well, he's shocked. I mean, the typical stereotype is, what kind of a family do I live in? It's got somebody on death row. And he was also intrigued. And he wrote me, asked me about it. And I wrote back and told him a little bit about the circumstance, and ended up summing up saying, don't take my word, look into it for yourself, the truth's out there. And that's what he did. He looked into it. He contacted an attorney friend of his in Phoenix who got the transcripts for him, the 8-day trial transcripts, and he read over those, and again, he was concerned, he was again intrigued. I mean, there was no evidence, it was just this bite mark stuff. And he came down to meet me, first time I ever met him on death row. He came down to visit me, and we talked for the 2 hours we were allowed for our visits. And there's not a lot of hope in death row. You definitely feel helpless, but the hope is the one thing you don't want to lose. You lose hope, you might as well give up living, because there is no life really without hope. And I've seen it in there, and I've seen guys take their lives, and I've seen some that succeeded, some that didn't succeed. But this was a new feeling here. There was more hope here being generated. I always had hope because I was innocent. I thought that was a protection, but it really wasn't. But here's a man that says he's going to help me. And another thing, the Lord had blessed him with a good career, a fortunate occupation. He was an entrepreneur and had his own software company, and he was doing okay. It wasn't Bill Gates type person, but he was doing all right, and he had time off, and he had some money, and one of the first things he did was go and start talking to other bite mark experts. Took some of the pictures from my case and went and seen And the first one said it wasn't me, which was good news. But my cousin ain't gonna settle for just one person. He goes and sees a second, and then the third, and they all said, "There's no way, it doesn't match Krone. You can get one of the teeth to match, but you can't get the full bite pattern to match. It's impossible, Krone didn't do it." Well, this is wonderful news. So my cousin goes out and hires an attorney, a private attorney from California, to start what they call post-conviction relief, based on new evidence. We're trying to come up with DNA tests, now trying to get DNA testing done with his bite mark evidence. Also, they were gonna try to get a new trial order by the trial judge. And I had quite a few issues, thanks to my wonderful attorney. But I actually got to thank him truthfully and say, bless his incompetent rear end, because he actually had one real good day on my behalf. And it was the day before trial, but nevertheless, that day the prosecutor introduced a videotape made by their bite mark expert of how, a beautiful videotape, beautiful production of how he lined up my teeth and matched this all to me, and perfect identification, 100%. He made comments like, this is even more individualized than fingerprints, and all kinds of crazy stuff this man wrote. And the prosecutor wanted to introduce us the day before trial started. My attorney objected. He said, "Your Honor, that's a violation of rules of discovery, you know." Well, the Supreme Court looked at this and right away recognized that yes, it was a violation, definite violation. Even the fact that they shouldn't have let the evidence, the videotape in, they said the defense is well in its rights to ask for a continuance, and it should have been granted, because when they did the harmless error test, the test I was telling you about, whether it decides whether or not you get a new trial or not, don't believe in that technicality stuff. They say technicality is overturned to technicality. People think, oh, they spelled his name wrong, or they left one number out of a date or something. They think that gives you new trial. Well, there ain't no such thing really as technicalities. You either violated, your rights were violated or they weren't. That's all. And that next trial started in 1996. And things were really looking good. We had DNA now that excluded me. We had none of the fingerprints matched me. I mean, just wonderful. We had some people that were around at the area that had witnessed certain things. And that trial lasted 6.5 weeks. Over 500 exhibits was introduced. There was 30 experts that were there, including FBI experts. We had 3 bite mark experts alone for my defense. My family's there every day, and we get to talk at the end of the day and go over how bad we made the prosecutor look, and the lies that we caught him in again, and just everything was wonderful. But I'll tell you something, the prosecutors don't quit. They're arrogant, they're cocky, they don't know how to lose, they don't accept the truth when it's not their way. And I'll give you a perfect example of their attitude and their way to dismiss facts. That bite mark that I was supposed to make, the bite mark on her bare breast, the DNA swabs came back, it was DNA tested, didn't match me. It was a known saliva sample, they identified it as saliva. It was not my DNA. And that prosecutor had the nerve to stand in front of the jury and tell them, disregard it, ignore it, they're just trying to trick you. He said she's a waitress, she's a barmaid, she handles people's glasses and bottles all day long, that was just transferred there by accident. That's what he told the jury. And again, this man is amazing or hypnotic or something, because the jury was out for 3.5 days and they came back and found me guilty again. And a landmark decision by that judge, he actually ruled that there was lingering residual doubt of my guilt. He ruled that that was a mitigating circumstance. He ruled that that outweighed the aggravating circumstance, and he sentenced me to 25 to life. I guess that's a step up in some ways. I wasn't going back to the row. But let me continue. He sentenced me to 25 to life for the murder. He went on to sentence me to another 21 years for the kidnapping, random consecutive. So by Arizona law, I'd had to do 25 years minimum before I could come before the wonderful parole board, who I don't think they ever granted parole first time for anybody that doing a life sentence for murder. But I'd had to do at least 25 years before the parole board would have started taking a look at me. And when they finally decided to parole me, that I was a model enough inmate after 25 years in their human warehouse, that then I could start my 21 years for the kidnapping. That's a minimum of 46 years. Yeah, I wasn't going back to death row, but I was a dead man. And so off I went again to serve my life sentence in prison. I'm wondering what I'm going to do to help my family. Talking to the Lord. This is the Bible, went through death row, it was under my pillow. I promised to read it. I talked to the Lord. I knew I was in big trouble. The first time when I was on death row, I knew this was way above my power, way above my abilities. Being an individual, I was the oldest in my family. I thought I could take care of all the problems. And I went out and made it on my own without family help. And this is the Bible, and I read through it 3 times. It was on my 4th time I got out. This is some of the passages I'd marked. when I read into something and something would motivate me, you know, different passages like out of the darkness will come light, or that which is hidden shall become known, and just the story of Jonah and Job, of course, and things like that kept my hope alive. And finally, the Lord persuaded a judge to grant our motion to do some DNA testing. The clothing she was wearing was never tested. Can you believe this? In a rape case, the pants, the underwear she was wearing was never tested by the police department. And of course, the prosecution's objecting. They're saying, oh, it's a wild goose chase. It's, you know, wasting the court's funds. And, you know, it's a fishing expedition. He's been convicted twice by a jury. He's obviously the murderer. Don't grant this motion, Your Honor. Don't give him any DNA testing. But the judge did. I think he used a lot of what was written in that 17-page special verdict where my trial attorney wrote about lingering residual doubt. He made a comment in there about my case is going to haunt him for the rest of life because it was hard for him to believe that a person with my background could have ever committed this crime in the first place, and it was even harder to believe that I didn't commit this crime and was actually being sentenced for something I didn't do. Anyway, this judge ordered this DNA testing done, and he ordered the Phoenix Police Department's recently accredited crime lab to do it. Now, while that made me feel nervous at first, there was the police handling stuff that could exonerate me. But they were ordered to do it. And the beneficial thing of that is the police departments are the only ones that have access to DNA data banks across the country. And they did their DNA, they did their extraction from these jeans and from the underwear, and they plugged it in the data bank. And it came back with a match. Yep, came back with a match to a man that was currently serving 10 years in prison for assaulting a teenager, sexually assaulting a teenager, 3 weeks after the murder. I got a call on Friday. I got called up to the counselor's office. It was in Yuma, Arizona, in prison, just another day in prison for me. And I got to the counselor's office, there was my attorney on the phone. He said, hey Ray, what do you want to eat tonight? Like, what are you talking about? I'll eat whatever in the chow if I can stomach it. He goes, no. I said, what do you want to eat tonight? You want Mexican food? You want beer, cerveza, margaritas? What are you hungry for? I said, what's going on? Nothing funny. He says, well, I just got off the phone with the prosecutor's office. He said, they just got back from the judge's chambers. He said, they just got paperwork. You're going to be released today. Yeah, he told me that right there by the phone. 10 years, 4 months, and 8 days and a few odd hours, I walked out of that prison finally. And to know what my family and friends did all this time that supported me and fought for me while I was in prison, and I heard somewhere in the estimate of $200,000 it's costing the fighter. Who can afford that? And not just the money alone, but the suffering and the struggle that they went through. Because when you have family or loved ones in prison, you're doing your own type of time. You're free walking around with other people, and you're still doing the type of time with them. And so I was really in a dilemma. I was really almost traumatized, stressed out about what am I going to do for my family? How am I going to pay them back? How am I going to make this up to these people, all these people that I owe? And I was giving an interview one day, and I was talking about how I'd read the Bible and how it helped me and gave me faith, and how I was so lucky to have a wonderful, caring family and be able to be out there with them. And I glanced over, and there's my mom with a tear running down her eye, my sister right next to her, and they kind of got their arm around each other. And I realized then maybe I can't pay them back money-wise. Maybe I can't pay them back for all those 10 years, but maybe I can make them proud of me. Maybe I can make a difference in this world. And all those people have fought and defended me and believed in me and trusted in me, and I'm out here now, maybe I can speak out. And I want you to know that just like I said, I was from a little small town, just one individual, insignificant. My family, my friends, just small town people, insignificant people. But they banded together as one against a common cause, a common good, to fight for Ray Krone's freedom. They fought the whole justice system of Arizona to prove my innocence. And they did it, they accomplished it. I'm out here, I'm free. And I want you to know and challenge each and every one of you who have been worked for so long. I don't think it's fair for me to even challenge you. You already just deserve so much credit and accolades for what you have done. And again, I'm new to this, but I want you to know that everyone can make a difference. Just as my family did, just as my family fought and struggled against the hardships, the money, whatever they could do, they banded together in common faith, common trust, common beliefs, common goals, and accomplished what they had to do. I can't support the death penalty. There's nothing good about it, period. I know it, I've seen it. I'm going to fight against it for as long as I have breath in me. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I can't do it by myself. I need help. The Lord will provide that, but He's also going to need a few of you down here too. And I'm just here to tell you again, I'm thankful to be here. I'm proud to be here. I'm honored to be with this group of people, these dedicated professionals, devoted people, caring, concerned people, and help me and also show me the way. And thank you for being here.